I am Daniel Kim. I'm part of Group 16. My my partners haven't contacted me, so I'm just doing this myself, and this is what I have. So I chose the embodiment of Christ, entombment of Christ. Of course, the issue is that I kind of forgot to get approval for this. So hopefully this is okay. If not, I apologize. Okay. So yeah, this is the Entombment of Christ by me. So this is the piece itself. It shows Christ being lowered onto, looks like a slab. Multiple people mourning. He's being lowered by John the Evangelist and some other person. I don't quite remember their name, but I'll get to it. Okay. So the artist is Michelangelo Merisi de Caravaggio. He's the one that painted the Entombment of Christ. And he's an Italian painter who influenced the Baroque style of painting. Because you can see in his paintings a lot of the earlier types of indicators in which you start noticing Baroque, such as like darker shading and lighting, etc. He doesn't appear in the painting, and he made it on his own. The reason he doesn't appear in the painting is because it's like a religious piece, and it only includes like those from the religious context. So to put himself in would have been kind of strange. So he was Caravaggio was commissioned by Girolamo Petrese, who's the nephew and heir to Pietro Petrese, who was the founder of the Pieta, I think that's how it's pronounced, which is, I think it was the statue that Michelangelo created of Mary holding the body of Christ. All right. He worked and lived, well, originally he was from Milan. A lot of his work was done in Rome. Yeah. He painted the altarpiece for a chapel in Santa Maria in Vallicella. It was the chapel right next to the church, to its right. So yeah, he was born in Milan, and he had a lot of family issues, including his mother and father dying, succumbing to the plague. And he was an apprentice to Simone Pietrozano, but he eventually moved to Rome, where he lived a pretty wild life, in which he was involved in a lot of street fighting, crime. He was poor for a very long time. He murdered someone at some point, then he had to flee. And eventually he got murdered. It's still not quite clear who killed him, but he got killed. And most of his famous pieces that he painted, like that, it was mostly in Rome, or at least around the area. That's where he got a lot of his work. Like a lot of his commissions were from that area, especially during the time and era. Additional works by Caravaggio would be this piece, which is a Judith beheading Holofernes. It's pretty graphic stuff, but very detailed, like good lighting work and the shading in which most people would expect from Caravaggio. Also, that would also include the visceral detail that Caravaggio was pretty known for. Also, a basket of fruit, which is kind of a step backwards from the visceral stuff he did, but this is more of one of his earlier works that he did as, like, I wouldn't say as an apprentice, but just some earlier stuff that he did. This was more of a still life, so obviously it was just him practicing, or maybe it was just a piece that he was actually trying to make, but like I said, it's just a still life. So I guess not much depth in this itself, except we can still see the masterful work that he does in his art. Okay. Societal framework and influence. During Caravaggio's heyday, like basically when he was really popular, the Roman Church was at a turning point in the Counter-Reformation. Like a lot of things were going on, and the church was still in very high strength, so it stayed pretty popular with a lot of people, so it had a lot of power and influence. And at the time, Rome was very cosmopolitan, with artistic academies being formed there, and a lot of people like doing pilgrimages to Rome. So a lot of artists were commissioned at the time to draw religious pieces by really important like religious figure, like not figures, but people who are very prominent in the religious world, such as the Pope and other bishops and priests. They're basically just doing this in order to show off the elegance and the greatness of religion and Christianity itself. It was a capital. Yeah. All right. Title and the subject. The title of the work is The Entombment of Christ, and its subject is individuals mourning the death of Christ and placing his body onto a slab. The two men in the piece itself, shown in the piece, that's John the Evangelist and Nicodemus in the back. While in the very back we have Mary Magdalene, Mary of Cleophas, and the Virgin Mary. And even though he was commissioned to make the piece, Caravaggio seemed to have some reverence for these biblical figures because he put a lot of thought into the composition of the work. Like a lot of analyses state that the figure and like the positioning of the hands of the individuals in the piece really represent certain things that obviously aren't told in the painting itself, but allude to like some hidden messages, such as, let's say, the how Mary of Cleophas right here is raising her hands towards the heavens, kind of alluding, maybe trying to speak towards God. And for me, since I'm a Christian, I feel that it is relevant to me because it is portraying the heartfelt part of life of Christ, in which his passing, basically. So I guess it holds some relevance towards me. The date in which it was made and what was happening. The Entombment of Christ was made in 1603 to 1604 during the emergence of Baroque and when the church still had considerable power. The piece was made because Caravaggio was commissioned by people from the church. And it wouldn't have been made at any other age because the style in which it was painted in, which is tenebrism, was invented by Caravaggio, which also utilized the use of light and dark shadows, which was very unique to the Baroque style of painting. The time of the work's execution matters to the understanding of its subject because religious art was highly requested at this time in Rome, due to it being the Jubilee year, which meant that thousands of pilgrims came to Rome in hope of indulgences. So it was a pretty good time for like churches to start showing how great religion is, start showing people, because there's a lot of people who look at the art and such. And here we have just an example of some Baroque pieces showing off some religious artwork, like really grandiose style and just really nice drawing. It was just really meant to show just how great this religion was. The material and medium in which it was created. The Entombment of Christ is a painting. It was painted with oil on a canvas, and canvas is a surface that you paint on that is often made from tightly stretched unbleached cloth or a closely woven fabric that is often used to make boat sail, purses, and upholstery. During the time, oil paintings were used normally by many painters. The piece was inspired by the Baroque style, obviously, because it was Caravaggio making it, and eventually he would also end up inspiring the style itself and kind of helping towards it. And I figured that oil painting would have had, like, the reason maybe Caravaggio was using these paints is because whenever you use oil painting, sometimes darker shades of color seem to come out, and much more detail is put into this kind of like art. And oil painting definitely helps out with details. So yeah, here's some oil paintings of the time. Yeah, the size. The dimensions of the Entombment of Christ was 300 centimeters by 203 centimeters, which means that the piece was pretty big. This was common for pieces at the time because These were religious works, and churches wanted to display the greatness and the grandness of the religion. And yeah, and also considering it was an altar piece, it made sense that it was pretty large for a lot of people to see it. All the figures in the piece seem to be identical size, but John and Jesus seem to be just slightly larger. Also in Nicodemus, maybe it's because of the perspective, but it also just might stay because it might be because of the importance of them, considering that this is John the Evangelist and Jesus Christ. Also the same for Mary of Clopas, because she's stretching her arms, which covers a lot more space on the canvas itself, maybe showing some more importance. And like I said, the hand stretching out to the heavens also would bring a lot of attention to her, which would also be a good reason for her having some considerable amount of space and catching the eye. The location of the piece itself, the Entombment of Christ, is currently in the Pinacoteca Vaticana, which is a part of the Vatican Museum itself. And at the time of its creation, it was in a chapel in Santa Maria in Vallicella, which is sometimes known as Chiesa Nuova, a church for the oratory of Saint Philip Neri. It was put in the church because it was specifically commissioned to be put there as one of the altarpieces. The viewers were all people of faith, and since it was originally drawn so masterfully, it was highly acclaimed by many. Its original purpose was to show the tragedy and beauty of the passing and entombment of Christ. Now it's viewed as art, but one can still view it as they did in the past for religious reasons. Yeah, that's my presentation. Thank you.